Hey, Stargazers. Today we are speaking with a cybersecurity expert and also a sales leader who has led sales teams for multinational companies. He has had to learn how to win RFPs throughout his decades-long career, and he gets really specific on how to win RFPs before an RFP comes out. This is going to be relevant to everybody who is in both captures, pursuits, and proposals. So if you want to learn exactly what questions to ask during your PQQs to build trust, yes, during PQQs, exactly what needs to go into your qualification questions, exactly what you need to be asking your software vendors to make sure that you are getting a genuinely secure proposal management tool. If you want to know exactly what needs to go into your buyer mapping, he gets into these specifics. Simon Cuthbert is a cross-parliamentary advisor in cybersecurity. So yes, he really knows what he's talking about. And like I said, ran multinational sales teams. This is a guy that I'm so excited for all of us to learn from. Let's get into the conversation. Hey, Simon, so good to see you. And thank you so much for being on the Stargazy Brief.
Good morning, Chris. Good to see you again.
A lot of the questions I want to ask you are really set on your background as a sales leader and a cybersecurity expert and leader in your space. And so I think people who are listening to it, I think it's really good for us to hear from people with that background because you're going to see it from a really specific lens that we need to be seeing RFPs from as well. So like one of my biggest questions to you is what are winning teams, like winning RFP teams, doing differently within that pre-analysis stage?
That's a really good first question, actually, and I'm glad you asked that. So we see the biggest differentiator is that winning teams treat the pre-RFP as a strategy phase, not a preparation phase. So losing teams use that time before an RFP drops to gather information. But we see that winning teams use it to shape the opportunity. They're talking to the buyer, understanding the politics, identifying the real problem behind the stated requirement, which is sometimes not quite aligned, and sometimes even influencing how an RFP gets written. By the time the document lands in their inbox, they're not starting from scratch. They're starting to execute a plan they've already built.
I love that. I wish I had more sales leaders in the past who have thought about it that way. And then one thing you do talk about is buyer mapping. What is good buyer mapping and what does that look like in practice?
So good buyer mapping goes well beyond the organizational chart. And I think that's a big mistake a lot of organizations make. So you're not just asking who signs the contract, you're asking who has the pain, who has the budget authority, and who are the internal champions. And you also need to understand who are the blockers in there as well, because that's just as important as who are your internal champions. Why are they blocking? But what does each stakeholder personally gain or lose from the decision of going with your solution as opposed to someone else? So the best teams map buyers across 3 dimensions: their role in the decision, their priorities, and their relationship with you. You want them to know who you have access to and who you don't, just as importantly, and who the competitor might already have a relationship with, and that's always a driver. So a buyer map that's just names and titles is just decoration. A real buyer map really drives your whole engagement strategy.
I could ask you just questions about that because I feel like that is one of the most important things people can do within a sales cycle, RFP or no, to make sure that they do win, is to get that strategy correct.
The sales teams that I've worked with over the years, we've always been very strong on the relationship and understanding. For me, when I look at two parts of the sales organization. I look at the relationship sales of the organization and I look at the delivery side of the sales organization. They're 2 different people in the teams that I have. The relationship guy is the one who understands the customer, understands who they're talking to, again, what their pain is, what the real requirement is, and what are the blockers for winning that RFP or just that sale, even if it doesn't go to RFP. And the other side of that are they're the smart guys, the technical people. They're the ones that deliver. They're the ones that go in and sit with the technicians and deliver a solution, whether that be a hybrid cybersecurity solution or whether that's a crane that's being installed in a port. Somewhere in the UK. I only say that because that was something I was involved in once. But the rules are the same. The actual framework doesn't change. the important thing for any sales process is to understand your customer. And if you don't understand your customer, then you are becoming a sales guy, and nobody likes a sales guy. And that's fact, unfortunately.
But yeah, okay. So you've seen so many of these play out and help so many people do buyer mapping, within the teams that you run. Do you ever see, especially in RFP situations, where they are maybe overlooking specific people that they should be talking to within the buyer organization that they really need to be in order to make sure that they win?
First of all, when you're having your sales meetings, your forecasting meetings, whatever you want to call them, you're asking your team the questions. Who are you talking to within the organization? Are they the right person, or are they the person that you know? Because again, could be two different people. And understanding who the right people are within an organization is absolutely key to winning that relationship. One of the first things that I was ever told years and years and years ago by a chap called David Guyatt. He was the person, there were two people that gave me an opportunity within cybersecurity, David Guyatt, Catherine Jameson, two of the loveliest people I've ever worked with. David was the CEO of the company that took me in, and he said, people buy from people. And we all say it, we've said it thousands and thousands of times, but it was the first time I'd ever heard it. And he also said to me, if you do everything else right, you will never need to sell anything. And I think that's really important. Having the ability to understand your customer, understand who within that customer you need to be addressing and introducing yourself to is absolutely fundamental. So in answer to your question, some people are overlooked. Some sales guys, they only want to talk to the senior people within an organization. I strongly disagree with that process. For me, I want to be talking to everybody that has an input to a technology that we're talking about, whether that be an admin guy that works in IT, or whether that's the chief information security officer, right the way through the chain. But the other thing to remember is they are very different conversations. The pain of an IT admin is completely different to the pain of a CISO. And again, different to the pain of a CEO. So you need to understand what those conversations need to look like to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah, one thing that I suggest to people is when you are doing that buyer mapping within your organization, who should be talking to them? Make sure they can have that conversation. Like if you have me talk to a CISO, I'm probably going to use the wrong words and probably not know exactly what they need to hear and what they need to, I'm just not going to be able to have that conversation intelligently with them. Or if you have me talking to a CRO, we're going to be fine.
You're absolutely right.
So we focused a little bit on the pre-RFP. Now, let's say we received an RFP, we need to qualify it. What does a really strong bid qualification have in it? And are there any specific things that you see people really focus on within their bid qualification that they shouldn't be focusing on? It's kind of a two-part question.
I'll probably forget the second part, so remind me when we get to the end. So a strong qualification framework answers 5 things honestly. Can we win? Can we deliver? Should we win? Meaning, is this good for our business? And I'll give you an anecdote on that in a second. What's it going to cost us to bid? And do we know enough yet to make that call? I see a lot of traps, and the ones I see more often really are, first of all, revenue optimism. I think is a phrase that I've used many, many times over the years.
Yeah.
So a team will qualify it because the number's big, not because there's the win probability is real. And alongside that, when you follow that through, secondly, is what we call the sunken cost thinking. We've already spent 3 weeks on this, we can't pull out now. That sort of phrase. And then thirdly, and this one's really, in my opinion, people treat qualification as a one-time gate at the start, when it should be a continuous process. Circumstances change. So a new competitor will come in. Your key contact leaves the buying organization. So you should be requalifying throughout the bid.
So in terms of requalifying, do you think it's a time thing, every week we should be relooking at it?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you should always have regular update meetings to update your customer with where you are in that process, and then allowing them to update you on where they are in that process. And again, that doesn't happen a lot. There are big gaps between talking to the client and not. And if you're not talking to them, I can damn guarantee that somebody else is. One of your closest competitor will be on the phone to them saying, well, when was the last time you heard from them? Silly questions like that, but get into your head. So there should be regular updates, but when there's key information and it's urgent information, then you should be reaching out to your client. And also your client should be reaching out to you. If you've got a good relationship with them, they should be reaching out to you also. So if something changes, somebody leaves the buying organization, or there's been a sudden budget change within the organization, a lot of the time you don't get notified. But if your relationship's really good with your key stakeholders and the people that you have a good relationship within your organization, they will come to you and let you know there's going to be a delay on this part of the process because ABC. The sales process is a two-way street. You know, it's not just sell. It's not I've got to do all the running. If the client has got a good relationship with you, they'll want to come to you for information.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, do they trust you enough? Do they like you enough to actually reach out to you and ask you?
I talk about trust a lot in my cybersecurity roles. So I'm a cross-parliamentary advisor on cybersecurity, and I'm a regular speaker at a lot of the trade events. So I was at InfoSec a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about that, and my title was trust. That was it. That was the word that I used, and I used it a lot. And trust on both sides is absolutely key, and not just I trust you'll do it. It's the I trust you're giving me the information that is relevant to me, not just pre-canned marketing spiel.
Yeah, that's a tough one. In terms of like proposals, like when we actually do start writing our bid, how do we build our trust in that proposal? Is it being clear and to the point, like you're saying, and not just putting in your pre-written content and just sending it over? Is there something that we should be doing to build trust within our bids?
I think when we're talking about bids, it's a customer that we have not had an interaction with previously. So let's take an RFP that has come out, and the chances are that you may not have a relationship with anybody within that organization.
Yeah.
So you're starting from the ground up. In a lot of instances, once that bid has been released, you can't speak to anybody within that organization about that bid, especially public sector in the UK. You can't speak to anybody within that bid. So you need to rely on your PQQs, so your pre-qualification questions. You need to be able to articulate those questions in such a way that you stand out from the rest, not what's the value of this? When's the implementation date? You need to be asking searching questions that are going to stand out and make the buyer think, okay, these guys know what they're talking about because they're asking the relevant questions. And that will help to build the trust. But then you get to the stage of bid no bid, you decide, actually, we can put a strong proposal in here. The proposal writing itself can build the trust. Using terms and phrases that the client understands, using real life case study examples, being able to pull those together and put those into your bid will help build that trust. And it's what I call trust at arm's length. They don't know you, you don't really know them, but you're trying to build a remote relationship without having the ability to actually talk to somebody. And it's a fine line. It's a difficult skill. And that's one of the reasons, without wanting to sound like a sales guy, it's one of the reasons we built Bid Manager, which is we will build the draft for you. But what we call the warm blood asset is fundamentally key to being able to win those proposals by reviewing it and then making the manual changes, human changes that will build some more context in over and above what we've already given you. So, you never get anybody that wants to put a 100% AI bid in, they're never going to win it. You need to be able to take those pre-qualification answers and integrate them and create a response that is going to be relevant to that customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the bid qualification, just really quickly, I want to know if you've seen a difference in revenue attainment from the organizations that use bid qualification versus the ones that don't.
The simple answer is yes, but that would make a really boring podcast, so I'll give you a bit more of an answer. Yeah, absolutely. The data from our customers makes this stark. Teams that have a disciplined qualification process, they don't just win more, they win more efficiently, which is key to what we do and how we help our customers. Winning more is key to any bid team being more successful. So they're not leading bid resource in no hope pursuits. That's everybody's done it. Everyone will still continue to do it because Commercial guys will get involved and say, let's bid on it. Whether we're going to win. The win rate impact is real, but the cost of sale impact is just as significant.
Yeah.
So a team that stops chasing 3 bad bids a quarter and redirects that energy into 1 or 2 well-qualified opportunities will outperform every time.
I'm really looking like the survey that we're doing, and I'll link it below. I'm hoping to show that with data that we can, because you and I know that to be true just because we've seen it in our own lives and our own work, but it's really good to have data to back that up because I genuinely believe that's true. So, okay, we've kind of gone through the cycle, like the pre-RFP, the qualification of the RFP. Okay, we've qualified it. We're going to go. How can teams then create a really good story for their bid even before they start writing?
I like that question. So story has to come before the writing. You can't just start. Right. It's like any good story. When an author writes a book, I've written a book on one of my hobbies outside of this world, one of my passions. And before I put pen to paper or touch the keyboard, before I put pen to paper, I thoroughly researched and wanted to have everything set out in my mind and also in front of me in terms of how I wanted this to come across. If you want to write a coherent bid. The mistake teams make is treating the narrative as something that emerges from the content. It doesn't. It has to be built deliberately. So the way I think about it, before anyone writes a word, the team should be able to answer 3 questions. First of all, what is the buyer's real problem? Not the stated requirement, the actual problem underneath it that has resulted in the requirement. What is our distinctive, unique answer to that problem? What can we bring to the table that no one else can, that is going to make us stand out, that is going to deliver a strong proposal that is going to stand out from everybody else? And also being able to deliver a story of why we're the only credible team to deliver that. If you can't answer those 3 things in plain language, then you're not ready to write. When you can, everything, the executive summary, the sections theme, the proof points, that will all ladder back to the central story.
Yeah, it's finding that differentiator that I think is a really tough one. But I think if you find it, then you are going to be way ahead of everyone else. And one other thing I want to say, because a lot of people don't have like a technical writing background, that's one of the first things you're taught is to put an outline together before you start writing. And it just like helps get your brain to put it all together and you know where you're going. And if you're working collaboratively, everyone else is going to know where you're going and where they need to go. So I'm glad you brought up the outline part.
It also goes to emails as well, as a side note. I can generally tell when an email has been well thought out before it's been written. And on the flip side of that, it's very easy to see an email that has just been written with no real thought going into it at all. And I'm talking about sales. Like, if you have to build a structure into a sales email, and it's the same as the pre-QQs in an RFP. You don't just ask a one line. Give a reason for asking your question.
You know what? I've never heard anyone say that before. Giving a reason for the question. I feel like if people were to do that, they're a lot less likely, like procurement is a lot less likely to say no or yes, and then not give you any background.
I think context behind any question will generally give a better response or generally glean a better response. And also make sure it's an open question. The amount of pre-QQs that I've seen over the years that are yes, no answers. What is the point of asking a closed question? And then you expect the client and buyer to elaborate on it without you asking them to. And then you'll go back with more pre-QQs. Well, you said yes, what do you mean? Complete waste of everyone's time and energy. Make sure your pre-QQs are succinct, but also searching, to make sure they understand the question that you're asking, which will enable them to give you a response that will be clear and coherent.
Well, you've just added a new best practice to my proposal process.
Glad I could help.
So we've got everything together. We're ready to go. Now we're going to talk about software because of course I love talking about software. Where should teams be using a proposal or bid software, and where should we just be using humans? Like where is that mix? Where is that dividing line?
The reason that I launched Arthurian Labs is because it's something I feel really strongly about. The interaction between, again, what we call cold blood asset and warm blood asset. The difference between AI and people. There is a fundamental difference. I've always seen technology. I look at it through the eyes as enablement. So technology should be an enabler. It shouldn't be an inhibitor, and it shouldn't be a replacement It should help people to do their work. I'm not talking about just proposal writing, AI in general. So the tools themselves really should be doing the heavy lifting on the intelligence and the synthesis, pulling together past performance, competitor signals, compliance matrices, bio research, so that the proposal experts can then spend their time on what only a human can do, which is make a judgment, build relationships, and write the narrative. The proposal expert's value isn't in reformatting last year's case studies or building a compliance checklist at midnight. It's knowing that the buyer's procurement lead was burned by a failed implementation 2 years ago, for example, and that needs to be addressed head on in the methodology section. Tools accelerate the groundwork, people make the strategic calls, and the risk is when teams use AI to replace thinking rather than to create more space for it.
Yeah, I feel like you can really tell when people did use AI to replace thinking as well. I think you'll probably be able to fool people who they're not an expert in the subject, but if you're trying to convince somebody to purchase your tool in the way that's going to help them, they are going to know.
Yeah. I think undoubtedly, and some RFPs are now written by AI, which I think it's too early to be doing that. And I think some people are incredibly lazy and use AI in completely the wrong way. I can give you some real world examples from the last 2 weeks. So I won't mention names, I won't mention departments. There was a public sector tender was released in the UK, and I'm involved in an AI platform that would replace the likes of ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, and so on. And we've done some quite deep research with that particular platform. And I built a prompt, which was 3, 4, maybe 5 lines of prompt that I put into this platform. And I asked it to go out and look for responses to a particular tender. So I had the tender reference number. I put the tender reference number in, I put the department in, I put the title of the requirement in. And I asked it to go out and look for responses that what would be my competitors would have given. It went away and it came back 10, 15 minutes, I think it was. And it came back and had given me 2 full responses. I mean, 2 full tender responses where competitors had put the RFP they put it into Claude, and Claude had written a response for them. Don't get me wrong, it was a dreadful response. But the important thing to note here is it also included all of the competitors' information. People forget that once you've put stuff into these AI large language models, it's getting spat out at the other end. It doesn't just use it once and then rip it up and throw it away and forget all about it. It uses it to build future responses. So with the right prompts, you can go back and find that information. Now, organizations that do that are doing a number of things. They're making their own business weaker. They are effectively causing huge amounts of data security leaks within their organization, and potentially GDPR breaches as well, depending on what they're doing. Organizations need to be far, far more in tune with the dangers of what putting your information out into a public platform is, compared to using one that is what we call behind closed doors. So one where it doesn't feed into a large language model, it doesn't educate the large language model. It just takes your information and uses your information to give you a response that is relevant to your business.
Yeah, I mean, what I am surprised about is some people don't even do the very basic of, like, if you're using Claude, for example, they don't even turn off the little toggle that says train Claude on your data. Like, just toggle it off. Like,
9 out of 10 people won't. They'll just boom, 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 put it in, and that information is there.
Yeah.
And once it's there, it's there. I know there is a current case in the US at the moment about somebody that has written a novel using Claude, and the argument is who owns the IP. And I think that's going to be a very long, very, very drawn out, very expensive court case. And the only people that are going to win from that are the lawyers.
Yeah, and also don't write a novel using ChatGPT or Claude, because I can tell, and I hate it.
Yeah. It drives me insane.
Use your
But
brain.
does that answer your
That answers my question. That goes on to my next question though, because obviously you have a very rich background in security. You spoke at InfoSec, like that's been a lot of your career. And so if I am a proposal leader, I don't want to be that person putting all of my company secrets and IP into Claude. Like what should I be asking a vendor, an AI specific vendor, to make sure I am going to be using secure software? I'm not going to be causing these problems for myself or my company.
That's a question that gets asked. It should get asked all the time. And you're right. It's something that I talk about in InfoSec and a number of other cybersecurity and security events and forums that I'm involved in. Because there's a lot of, how can I put it? There's a lot of theatre around AI and the AI space at the moment. Vendors are using the right words without any substance behind it. So InfoSec a couple of weeks ago, the majority of vendors that were there were AI this, AI that, reduce your risk with AI threat detection, when the reality of that goes against everything that I think AI is. So the questions that I push every proposal leader to ask is, so where does my data go? And it goes back to the point, is it used to train models? That's something that needs to be asked. What happens to the content that I upload? Is there a way for me to border that content so nobody else gets access to it, so I can lock that down? Always ask for penetration test results. Ask to see them. Don't just ask what they are. Pen testing is fundamentally important. Little side note, most organizations do an annual or biannual pen test. Personally, I think that's a complete waste of time. I think you need to have continual pen testing. I think literally every week, every couple of weeks, maybe dependent on the amount of data that's coming in and out of your organization and the size of your organization, sometimes you need to have pen tests daily. And it sounds extreme, but continual pen testing throughout the year is far more effective and actually far more efficient than pen testing once a year. And unfortunately, certain regulations say you only have to pen test once a year. So that's what a lot of organizations do. We are now seeing a lot of companies taking it on their own back and at their own expense, doing far more regular pen testing, because they understand that the data is the lifeblood of organizations. And if a breach occurs, it's going to cost them millions, tens of millions, and sometimes hundreds of millions to get that back to where it was. And we're talking loss of data, loss of revenue, loss of reputation, shareholder confidence, shareholder value going down, lots and lots of different things. So what else? Where does your data reside? What's the data residency policy? It should matter to clients in the UK. Is my data stored in the UK or in the EU, which EU is absolutely fine, by the way? Or is it stored in the US? Is it stored in Israel? Is it stored in any country outside the UK and the EU? And most critically, I think, is what are the human access controls? Who inside your vendor can see my content? And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'm just gonna write all those things up. Remind everybody to ask those questions. I know if they're in highly regulated industries, then they probably are working with their CISO to ask those questions. Like, there's no way they're going to purchase the tool. But a lot of people listening to this aren't in highly regulated markets, and so they're not going to be asking those questions. So perfect.
And they should still be asking them, whether they're regulated or not. They should be asking them, because if they're not asking those questions, then the chance and your supplier is unable to answer them, then that should raise a whole myriad of different questions.
So obviously you see proposals, bid leaders at a wide variety of companies within their career. What should they be focusing on right now to be ready for the future, like the near future, what's to come with RFPs and proposals? 3
things, I think. First of all is data hygiene. Data hygiene is fundamentally important. Good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out. The teams who'll benefit most from AI are the ones whose institutional knowledge, so win themes, case studies, past bids, all the lessons that they've learned are captured and structured. If it's all in people's heads or buried in email chains, you can't leverage it. So you've got to start building a library. And a library that is accessible to the right people at the right time. Secondly is process clarity. AI tools will amplify whatever process you have. If your bid process is chaotic, AI makes it faster chaos, if that makes sense. teams need to nail down what their workflows are, qualification gates, review cycles, sign-off points, so when you introduce tools, they're accelerating something that already works. And thirdly, and this is probably the one I think most people underestimate, is it refers back to something we spoke about earlier, which is story capability. As AI handles more of the content production, the differentiator will increasingly be the quality of thinking and the narratives that humans, the warm blood assets that the humans bring to the table. The proposal leaders who invest now in sharpening their strategic storytelling, their buyer insight, their ability to build a more compelling case, they're the people who are going to become more valuable as these tools get better and better. They're not going to become less valuable. And as I said earlier, I think all of these tools they should be viewed as an enabler. And I've had many conversations with bid teams, bid managers. Interestingly, not chief revenue officers. They all love the idea, but a lot of people are scared of using tools because they don't understand it. They think it's going to take their job. It's not. It's going to enable you to be more efficient and do your job in a better way than you're currently doing it. That's going to free you up to do more relevant things. And that's what technology should do.
I was reading a CSO report from Gartner this morning, and it said less than 1% of layoffs this year have been because of AI. So don't be afraid. Don't let that hold you back. So I'm completely with you. Okay, Simon. So let's say people listen to this, they resonated with it, they want to connect with you, they want to find Bid Manager Pro. Where can they find you?
So we've got a pretty cool Arthurian Labs.ai will take you to the website. My email, simon.cuthbert@Arthurian-Labs.ai. For anyone that wants to contact me, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm quite vocal and again opinionated on LinkedIn on a number of different subjects and topics. Feel free to reach out to me. If anybody would like a trial of Bid Manager Pro, I'm blown away by what our CTO and his team have built. I think there's nothing like it in the marketplace that is so comprehensive and so beneficial to bid teams right now. Being able to put a proposal into a platform and it analyze it and give you a bid, no bid percentage weighting within 30 seconds is astonishing. I talked to customers and prospects and said, what do you need? What are you looking for out of these platforms? The reoccurring theme was, I need to save time. I need to be more efficient. I need to be able to do more with less. One of our customers, she tested the platform and came back to me saying, it's great, but our budget has been cut. And I said, it is what it is. If we can help you, then let me know. About a week or so, 10 days later, she came back to me and she said, we have put a compelling case together internally to use Bid Manager Pro. And even though our budget has been cut, the board see that making this investment is going to help us perform our roles with those budget cuts. So nobody's been made redundant. Everybody's been asked to do more, but they're using Bid Manager Pro to make themselves more efficient in what they're doing. And I love that story. It's exactly what we're here to do.
Yeah, that's a powerful message.
Just imagine putting a bid into getting an RFP in via email, forwarding that email to Bid Manager Pro, and then getting an email response 30 to 60 seconds, depending on the lag of your email. But getting a response within 30 to 60 seconds saying, you've got a 78% bid percentage. Oh, and by the way, this is where you're strong. This is where you are weak. These are your gaps, which is what we deliver. Imagine how many more proposals you can put through in that time.
It's not even about more in that case. I think one of the most powerful messages with that is if you get a really low score, then your team will be focusing on the ones that you should be bidding on because you've just gotten a really good reason of why not. And you can bring that up to your CRO, CSO and be like, hey, we've got some issues here. Or maybe you see those gaps and you say, you know what, we can probably close those gaps.
It takes out the emotion as well. It removes any emotion from departments and sales leaders. used to be. And I've done it so many times, and I've upset bid teams so many times saying, I think we should still bid for it. It's a big number. It would be great if we could win this. And the technical team is saying, we haven't got a chance of winning, and bid anyway, because you've got to be in it to win it. I mean, sales directors and account managers as well are terrified of losing, I should say, an existing customer because a bid has come out. You can go to them and say, look, what they're asking for, we just cannot deliver. But let's look at this one and we can deliver on this.
Yeah, I mean, like, the emotion that comes into these decisions is huge. And for me, it really hasn't ever been with like the VP of sales or the CRO, CS. They tend to be like, yeah, that's a bad, we shouldn't be doing that. But when it comes to AEs, my gosh, like, it's a devastating conversation to have with them. So I've seen them cry before. But I think like when you do have that data, you do have the gaps, you can like make next steps, you can make plans. Whether for this RFP or for like the next time when they come around, you know, in that contract.
Absolutely.
You can see where the gaps are now, so you can fix those for later. So no, I love that. I'm going to put all of the URLs, everything below, so people can find you.
Right.
But Simon, thank you so much for being on the Stargazy Brief, and we'll see you again.
Look forward to it. Thanks for your time.
I hope you learned as much from Simon as I did. Go check out his LinkedIn page. Go check out Arthurian Labs website, and definitely follow him on LinkedIn because he posts so much interesting information across sales, cybersecurity, and of course, winning RFPs. So one big thing you can do if you enjoyed this podcast is to share it with a friend, with a coworker. We are so small at Stargazy, and this is how we grow. The best way you can help us is to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and your coworkers. All right, we'll see you next week for a new conversation. See you then.